All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another WNBA regular season video. In this video, I want to talk about the Caitlin Clark stuff that's been going on. I've been putting this video off for maybe 10 months, and that's crazy because you could talk about Caitlin Clark at any point in the last 10 months, and for some reason it would be controversial. There would be something going on involving her, not just about her, but around her. And it's not even her fault. Um, I want to talk about all this stuff. This is going to be a more just yapping, personal opinion video. Um, I just want to talk about it. I feel like it's been long enough. I've been sitting on this for so long. I just want to get my opinion out there. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. Just to be very clear, this video will only be about Caitlin Clark. It will be a little bit about the Indiana Fever, but it will be about Caitlin Clark, not about the other Indiana Fever teammate, which we won't talk about right now because that's a whole other can of worms that I'm not getting into. I'm not equipped enough as a sports channel to talk about that. So this is the Caitlin Clark video. So you might be asking, if you're not in the loop, what's going on with Caitlin Clark? Did she do something? Did she get a DWI? Is she, like, whatever, right? Is she, like, an abuser or something? No, she's just a basketball player. A bunch of stuff has come up over the last 2 years that she's been in the league, but more particularly the things around her. People sort of insinuating that she's one way and leans one way to the right or to the left. I think that's complete nonsense. I think the most dangerous thing that has happened in the past couple months is that these people with WNBA credentials, right? Like they have official credentials from the WNBA to go in the media room and ask questions, want to ask Caitlin questions that are unrelated to basketball and that have nothing to do with her particularly. It has stuff to do with her teammates. It has stuff to do with things that the media has dreamt up in fantasy land. It has nothing to do with her. And her and the Fever are getting backlash for not answering those questions. More recently, I saw on Twitter, on X, that a certain person with WNBA credentials wanted to ask Caitlin Clark about her teammates' thoughts on a subject, and neither Caitlin Clark's teammate or Caitlin Clark were made available for media that day after the game. Um, and that person who wanted to ask that question, which was unrelated to basketball, um, was upset that they didn't get to ask that question. And I think this brings into question or into the sphere of bigger problems is the WNBA has been so far leaning one way for so long, right? And WNBA talking heads have said this themselves. It used to be such a little small bubble, and I've been a fan for 10 years. I know what I'm talking about. It used to be such a small bubble of people that knew the WNBA pre Asia Wilson. I'm talking about Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, prime Brittany Griner, Angel McDougherty, that era, Elena Deladon, that era of players, that era sort of was old school now. It used to be such a small group of players, and not just players, fans. The season was shorter. There were less eyes on it, and it was a tight knit group. And I used to say this at some of my WNBA videos last year. I'm sorry that it's not your little club anymore. That it's not your little, like, oh, this is my safe space. I'm sorry it's not that anymore. That's the price of doing business. That's the price of becoming big name. Is that you miss your little club. Your little club becomes like a what's bigger than a club? You get my drift though. It becomes an organization. The organization becomes a multi-million-dollar business. You know, it goes from, we'll use a business example. From a startup company in your garage to a storefront to multiple storefronts to owning a conglomerate of stores. That's just how it is. And I feel like the remnants that's left over from the times of when it was really small and everybody would just yes man each other. Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. Oh yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And granted, there are still some things that go on in this world around basketball that are wrong, that shouldn't be tolerated. Right? There are some things that just shouldn't. We should unanimously agree on. That was bad. We stand up against that. There are other things that are small and like unique to each person that like we don't have to agree with each other. You know, I look at some of these players that hold different opinions than the other ones and who lean one way or another, right? I'm trying not to get too political. I'm trying to use vague terms, right? Um, and I look at them and I think about the online stuff, right? And I think about how many people, random people, hate one player. But when I see that player interact with other people around the league, they are loved. They are loved. They are respected, and nobody has a problem with them. It's the people online that have a problem with them, not people like me. Well, there are people like me with a microphone in their hand that say stupid stuff all the time. I say stupid stuff all the time, but I never try to insinuate something about a person. I try not to bring up personal stuff about people. I try not to say this person's bad. I can separate the person from the basketball player. Sometimes somebody's a really bad person, but they're a really talented basketball player. Sometimes they're a really bad basketball player, but a really good person, you know? And it's one of either way. What I'm trying to get at here is the stuff that's online. And somebody said this to me once, right? And this was many, many years ago. This was like 2023, 2022. Twitter isn't real. Those aren't real people. Like they're just not. They're not real people. They don't exist anywhere, right? They're not real. They get on their computer, they get on their phone, they type out a tweet, they say this and that, and they hit post, and it gets maybe a couple hundred, couple thousand likes, gets a couple retweets, gets bookmarks, right? And they have their moment, right? What I think is supremely dangerous, and what I think is the most detrimental thing to the league, is the league not being covered properly. And these people with the false facade of saying we need to cover the game. We don't always have to talk about Caitlin Clark, but every single time they're on air, they talk about Caitlin Clark. They do it. They do it themselves. And listen, I understand ESPN, some of these other networks, they're very big business. If they tell somebody to say something, we're going to talk about this today, you have to talk about it. Some of these people on camera, I'm going to specifically use ESPN as an example because it's the most relevant one. It's probably the one you guys know the most. There are people that will go on camera and use Caitlin Clark as like a starting point for something and then bring it all the way around and bring it back to her. And it's like you're jumping through so many hoops to understand a person that, quite frankly, you've never met the real Caitlin Clark. I've never met the real Caitlin Clark. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, though. And I feel like these people that are on camera do such a disingenuous service to not only the players in the WNBA, but the WNBA as a whole, saying, we need to just talk about basketball. We don't need to talk about this or that. But then they feel compelled, for whatever reason, to keep putting somebody's name in their mouth when it isn't about them. This person has come out, Caitlin Clark has come out and said, I don't like this, I don't like that. I stand for this, I stand for that. This is unacceptable, this is acceptable. I am for women's sports. I am for the WNBA. I'm not I'm not doing this alone, you know? She said that stuff. I'm not making this up. She said that stuff, right? Not in those particular terms, in a more eloquent and long-winded way of saying it, but you get what I'm saying. And these people just continue to say she needs to do this, she needs to do that, right? She needs to stand up for this. Why isn't she saying this? Why isn't she saying? They're getting mad at Caitlin Clark not saying anything. When mind you, some players don't want to be political. Not everybody's LeBron James. Not everybody is Steph Curry. And we can talk about Steph Curry and LeBron James and what they don't stand for. But I like those guys, so I'm not going to do that. See? So, Caitlin Clark being the all the pictures in this screen you're looking at is there for one reason, because I think Caitlin Clark is a great person. I think she's trying to navigate this in the best way possible. She's only 24, 23. I can't imagine having that amount of pressure. I think she's a great teammate. I think the basketball has sort of. Uh, I have my own opinions about the way she plays basketball. I think she needs to change it up a little bit. But that's basketball, you know. She hasn't had a lot of time to play as a pro. She's been nicked up every now and then. Um, Now, I will say some things about Caitlin Clark because I'm honest here. Is she a crybaby? Sometimes, yeah. You know who else is a crybaby? Luca, and Luca's one of my favorite players in the NBA. Being a crybaby and like pointing at the ref and like doing all this stuff, that's a whole plaguing all of basketball right now. Just nonstop complainers and nonstop whiners. Just go play the game. Don't worry about it. Just go play the game, right? Does she get away with stuff that other players wouldn't? I think so. But you also have to lean into this, where you also have to admit she has the most second most or most technicals in the WNBA, and if she gets one more, she's suspended for a game. So how does she get away with stuff if she's that high in the numbers? Riddle me that one. Um, Circling back to the semi-political stuff, you know who else wasn't very political throughout their career? Michael Jordan. Just a thought. Just saying. Um, I feel again. I feel like it's so icky. It's very icky for, and I understand it because it gets people clicks. It gets people talking about it. Hell, I'm talking about it right now, and I'm getting pent up about it. I'm getting mad about it. Um, like they just want to keep the cycle going of like, what's the next thing we can ask Caitlin Clark about that's controversial? What's the next thing that, well, granted, something probably she could control. What's the thing her teammate said? And the other thing, while we're on this topic, right? While I'm thinking about it, the other thing I hate about these Caitlin Clark fanatics, right? And by fanatics, I mean like these like not fans, just fanatics that like obsess about her. Your biggest hater is your biggest fan, sort of thing. Where like, oh, your biggest fan is your biggest hater. Yeah. The other thing I hate, and because I'm also a fan of her, Aaliyah Boston, top left of your screen, right? Just because people think Caitlin Clark is a certain way, they just think, or even whether Caitlin Clark is a certain way or isn't, they take, instead of trying to tear down Caitlin Clark, which they can't do, they start to tear down her teammates. And Aaliyah Boston, one of the nicest ladies in the WNBA, they tear her down. I've seen Aaliyah Boston be called so many bad names, just like awful names, and I'm thinking to myself, like I'm on Twitter, and I shouldn't get this mad about it because again, Twitter's not real, but I get so mad because I'm like, Aaliyah Boston's done nothing. She literally does nothing. And yet she gets caught in the blast. She gets caught in like this nuclear explosion of the fallout of like the Caitlin Clark stuff. And it's like Aaliyah Boston's one of the nicest people you probably would ever meet, you know? And they're like, she's this, she's that. They call her racist stuff. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So you're telling me you don't like Caitlin Clark because you assume she's a certain way. So you're going to call her teammate who's of a different ethnicity these names, but you're also a ally of this group that that Aaliyah Boston is. I get so confused by that. I'm so confused. Like, and it just doesn't make sense to me ever. Like, okay, I can understand you don't like Kane Clark. There are a bunch of reasons not to like Kane Clark. There are a bunch of reasons not to like a lot of these players, right? And a lot of these players, right, and the WNBA as a whole, are very. They don't do their research on things. There are players that have gone to the Met Gala. The Met Gala has their own stuff that you can look up for yourself. Some players have done Victoria's Secret. Victoria's Secret has its own issues. The WNBA has its own issues. Um, Partnering with certain groups. If we're this is I've always said this in my personal life as well. Where if you look into every brand that's ever existed or you use daily, you're gonna find something out bad about them. You are. It's just the nature of it. Are you gonna stop using that product because they did this thing? Are you going to stop doing this product because it was hearsay that they engage in this? No, you're not. So if you're not going to go down the rabbit hole of going through every brand and every athlete that you've ever liked, to not look for something bad, you're never going to enjoy anything in life. You're never going to enjoy any athlete. You're never going to enjoy anybody. You're just going to be miserable. And that's what I think these people are. I think some of the people on ESPN, I think some of the people who like to talk about women's sports, who have only been watching women's sports for the past like 4 years, I know who you are. I see you. I know who you are. And try to act like they've been watching it for many, many years. They're miserable. They're absolutely miserable people. They're the most miserable people you'll ever meet. And to top it off, they're not just miserable. They're a broken record. They just repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. And ESPN, I'm this turning into an ESPN hit right now. ESPN just keeps feeding people this slop. They're just like, eat your slop. Keep eating it. And it drives me nuts because it people eat it up and they just keep going on and on. It's the same cycle. Every 3 months, it's something. And again, granted, Caitlin Clark isn't in the best situation being surrounded by certain people and being associated with certain people. But then again, I think Caitlin Clark's a smart enough woman. And I think a lot of people listening to this are smart enough to say, okay, I'm friends with this person. They might have a different political view than me, but we can still be friends. Maybe I'm not as close as we could be, but we can still be friends. I'm not gonna unless you're some raging like X, Y, or Z, then cool, we can be friends. But there are some people that are just like, I would never be friends with that type of person. They just their head is so far up, where they're just like, I would never do that, and they think all their favorite athletes are like salt of earth great people, when that isn't true. And Caitlin Clark is probably one of the most neutral people you'll meet, and she's neutral because if she says something, it's headlines. If she says nothing, it's headlines. So I think in part the NFF aren't doing a good job surrounding her with positive PR people, and by positive PR people I mean like safe for work people, But at the same time, I think they're trying to do their best to protect her, and in trying to protect her, sometimes it comes off as like Caitlyn not wanting to talk about it. But it's just like, this isn't the time, this isn't the place. If you want to ask Caitlyn that question, you can ask her it at a different time. After a basketball game isn't the time, it isn't the place, right? And I truly do believe that this exhausting circus that Caitlin Clark has unwillingly participated in is detrimental to not only the WNBA but to one of their biggest stars, because you look at some of these other stars around the league, these younger stars, you have to admit nobody's as big of a personality as Caitlin Clark. And I've sort of cooled off on the thought process that Caitlin Clark is the WNBA. I don't think that's fair to a lot of the better players and the better teams in the league right now. But I think she's very polarizing in all the right ways and all the wrong ways. And that's sort of what you need in an athlete. And none of it's her fault, really. As we get into this video a little bit more, I do want to talk about some stuff and not just ramble here. Getting into some stuff that has actually happened. And Caitlin Clark has said, one of the more recent things I've seen her say is, nobody's going to take away my love for the game. Caitlin Clark on how the WNBA is being portrayed. We saw it All-Star Weekend. Former President Barack Obama tell Caitlin Clark, all that noise that's out there, just ignore it. And I think that's some of the best advice you can get from somebody who, in his time, it was nothing but headlines, and everything that he did, whether he said something, didn't do something, whether he went out for a smoke, whether he smoked or didn't smoke, it was a headline. I think we're in such a toxic place with media where, again, people just get fed slop, and people don't care to look into like the real facts of things, And people just love being in this hive mind of this person's bad. Yeah, let's all gang up on this person. We don't know if this person's bad, but this resource said they were bad. So let's say they're bad, right? And everybody just agrees. Yeah, that person's bad. Oh, and that person standing next to them, they're bad too. They're this, they're that. Stupid, stupidest stuff imaginable. Um, Now to bring this back to basketball, um, because I think this is also important. Is Caitlin Clark the best player in the league? um, no, and to be honest, I don't think she ever will be. I think the parallels between her and Luka Doncic are so apparent, um, because they're always going to be in that MVP conversation. They're always going to be highly touted as somebody who can lead a team to a championship, but really haven't done anything. I mean, Luka at least got his team to the finals. Caitlin Clark hasn't done that yet. Maybe this year we'll see, but I feel like the parallels between them are very close. Um, Also, no, do I want to mention that? No, we'll save that. Maybe we'll save that for the end of the season. I'll have to see how the end of the season ends. Um, is Caitlin Clark even the best point guard in the WNBA? Um, no, because I don't think Caitlin Clark's a point guard. I know she passes the rock really well. I know she does a lot of these things with her gravity on the court, but that's a real basketball question, and I think it has to do with the coaching, which we've talked about plenty on this channel. I think there's just certain things that Caitlin Clark hasn't had the ability to showcase yet. And I feel like as long as she's in this certain system, even though the team is playing well now, even dealing with some injuries, um, I don't know if Caitlin will ever reach her full potential. And Caitlin not reaching her full potential, again, gives people something to latch onto and be like, see, she's not as great as everybody says she is. I think both sides over dramatize, dramatize, both sides over dramatize. One, how bad she is. Two, how good she is. And three, how like just let her play basketball. Like I understand we're all I'm in this business, and a lot of you love listening to this stuff of like we need to mark this play as good as bad right now. We need to do it right now. And it's like, well, let's relax. Let's give some leeway. Let's give some grace. Let them put a couple full seasons together, and then maybe we can we can rank this person properly. Um, I think the WNBA is also so weird because we're entering a time where there's such an influx of new talent that, you know, I this is unrelated, but like people are saying like Olivia Miles should win MVP, a rookie should win MVP, and I think that's preposterous. I think that makes a mockery of the league. I think that's so stupid for so many reasons, but I don't understand that. I know she's playing very well, but it's like okay, so if we give her the MVP this year, what's she gonna do next year? Do we give her it again if she does the same thing? You need to have you need to pace yourself with these things. It all doesn't come at once. It's not an overnight thing. It isn't. You you look at somebody like Az Fudd, who we sort of not wrote off at the beginning of the year, but we were like sort of like worried about. We're like, what's going on with her? Like, why was she the number one pick? And now she's sort of showing why she was maybe not the number one pick, but maybe why she was such a highly touted player. She's really good on defense. She's way better on defense than I thought she would be, and obviously her 3 point shot has come around. So you have to pace yourself with these things. And the biggest thing for me is like Caitlin Clark's transition from the college game to the WNBA game hasn't been smooth because she hasn't had enough time. And I think, given the right scenario, and a lot of people can agree with me on this. You guys can agree with this. A lot of players don't have great coaches to start their career. They just don't. Um, you look at Asia Wilson, right? She had to be coached by Bill Laimbeer for like 2 years before she got Becky Hammon. You look at some of these other players around the league who, even right now, Paige Beckers got coached by that one guy, and now is being coached by Jose Fernandez, who Dallas Wings fans don't like, but um, it takes time, and sometimes it just takes a little belief. And the thing is that like there are so many people rooting against Caitlyn for such obtuse reasons that like I feel like the belief in her and like the things around her, the noise has become more potent than her actual play on the basketball court. Um, as we move on here, I'm just looking through some things that um, could have that could be of use in this conversation, and I'm not really seeing anything else here right now, and I don't want to ramble too much because we've done 25 minutes of rambling, so I think that's it. I don't want to lose my voice either. I record 2 videos today. Um, at the end of the day, and I don't want to sound, some of you are going to get this reference, some of you are not, but I don't want to sound like that girl in that video from many years ago that's like, leave Britney alone. I don't want to sound like, leave Caitlyn alone. Because I, I, I think everybody is subject to be judged, especially when you play a sport. You're gonna be it's a what have you done for me recently sport. I don't care what you did 2 years ago. I don't care what you did 3 years ago. I don't care what you did last week. What have you done for me? What did you do for me yesterday? What did you do for me 2 games, this game, that game? Um, for Caitlyn, sometimes it's like, oh, all she did was have a bad game and complain. Case in point, right, bottom right of your screen. Not saying that was a bad game, just saying just complaining and getting into verbal arguments with people. Um, and then there's the other games that are like, oh, she played really well. She hit a lot of threes. She passed the ball very well. She worked very well with Kelsey Mitchell in the backcourt. Um, you look at all that stuff, and we're gonna look back on this time, and we'll be like, Caitlin Clark. I don't want to say it, but Caitlin Clark did nothing wrong. She was just playing basketball and trying to be as neutral as possible and as loving for everybody as possible. Without like saying too much about one side or too much about the other. Um, Caitlin Clark's a fine person. I don't know Caitlin personally. Um, I think at times she is a bit arrogant and like cocky, but listen, man, that's the influx of WNBA players looking up to other WNBA players, such as like Diana Taurasi and players like that, and looking up to players like LeBron, Steph. Steph was one of the biggest front runners of the decade last decade. Steph Curry is one of the biggest front runners, but we love him for it. LeBron, one of the biggest like just like doing stuff after dunks, doing stuff after threes, the celebrations. Uh, it's the influx of that. It's the influx of more personality. But with the influx of more personality and more like, this is how I play the game, it rubs people the wrong way. And for me personally, I feel like in order to be that front runner, be that showboaty, be the biggest complainer, you need to back it up. And to end this video, I will say, for Caitlin Clark to continue on this trajectory of being painted as the bad guy and being painted as somebody who complains, you need to back it up. You need to start hooping really well, and she has started hooping very well these past couple games. So we will see, man. We will see. We're on the back half of the WNBA season now, so I hope we're done with the theatrics. I hope we're done with all the stuff, and we can just get into playoff basketball, and we could say, hey, Caitlin Clark had a really good playoff run, or Caitlin Clark played really bad in the playoffs, and that can be the end of it for this season, and we can put this stuff to bed, because I just want to talk about basketball, man. I don't want to come on here and talk about this stuff with you guys, because like I said, I could have talked about this at any point in the last 10 months, because there's so many things that have happened in the past 10 months surrounding, just about Caitlin Clark that she hasn't even involved herself with, but the media wants to talk about. It's exhausting. And I'm giving myself this one time to talk about it. I don't think I hit everything that I wanted to talk about, but I got my thoughts out there, and I hope you guys appreciate this. If you listen to this all the way through and you agree or disagree, just leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. I'm always open to new opinions and new ideas and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's it. If you want to check out the video on the left, it will pop up right now. If you want to check out the playlist on the right, you can click that as well. And if you want to click my little icon in the middle of the screen, bottom middle, a little subscriber will pop up right next to it, and you can subscribe with ease. We're looking for subscriber number 23. Could you be the 23rd subscriber? Maybe 24. Who knows? We'll see. Like and comment as well, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.